Today I'm here with Akin Fernandez from Azteco. Akin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I'm enjoying the conference.
Cool. Thanks for accepting the interview.
It's a pleasure.
So, Akin, is this your first time in El Salvador?
It is the first time, and I'm finding it to be quite a surprise. It's a very beautiful, calm place. The people are very friendly. I've been to places like Trinidad, and I don't know, there's something about here that's, there's something happening here, to cut a long story short. And I'm going to be telling my followers and people who read my blogs about my experience here. And I think there's a great amount of potential for El Salvador if they can get the conditions right. So if they can do that, this could be a very, very important country going forward for the entire world. Especially since Bitcoin is going to be the money of the entire world, at the very least, the money of the internet. And there needs to be one jurisdiction where people are free to incorporate, to open bank accounts and innovate without people glowering over them and telling them that they can't do things. And so if that country is here, I don't see a problem in that. And I certainly don't see a problem in us incorporating here, moving some of our offices here and doing business from here. So I'm very encouraged by what I've seen.
Okay. Since you've been here, what's your first-hand experience been with using Bitcoin in the country? It's
been seamless. You can go to any one of these bars, certainly in the hotel, and pay with wallet Satoshi. It instantaneously confirms. Everybody understands how it works. And you compare and contrast that with their credit cards. It's absolutely awful. So seeing Bitcoin in practice being used as an everyday way of payment is really super encouraging. And it just demonstrates that it is possible to have an economy that runs on Bitcoin where everybody's using it for the small payments. I mean, literally I buy a lemonade here with Bitcoin, just flash it, and instantaneously it goes through. So anybody who has any kind of doubt about whether Bitcoin can fulfill its purpose as a means of payment for anything is gravely mistaken. It's being done here right now.
What does financial freedom mean to you?
Well, that's an interesting question. Financial freedom, it depends what context we're talking about. Obviously, people are obliged to pay taxes, and there are some people who say that financial freedom is the freedom from being extorted in taxation. But really, what financial freedom means is that you're able to open an account and use your own money, the product of your own work. So if you're in the legacy rails system, opening a bank account is very, very, very difficult. Even in a country like the United Kingdom, which is a quote-unquote first world country, people are having their bank accounts closed there. So you could argue quite effectively that people in Britain don't have financial freedom because they don't have control over their own money. And that's what's so important about Bitcoin. Once you have your wallet, Satoshi, Blue Wallet, Samurai Wallet, you have financial freedom in that nobody can constrain your account. You can send money or receive money from anywhere at any time in any amount. That's freedom. So I think that's probably the best definition of what financial freedom is: the ability to receive and send money at will without permission of a third party.
What do you think of El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin so far?
I think it's very, very encouraging. And what they're doing, I don't think people understand how radical and how difficult what this country is trying to do with Bitcoin. Because money's half of all transactions, and people have been used to one kind of money for basically their whole lives, we're asking people to abandon one way of doing things and accept another way of doing things. And of course, Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin against fiat goes up and down, and so there's some education that needs to be done there. But I think what they're trying to do here, and what they're succeeding in doing, is heroic, nothing less than heroic. Because when Bitcoin becomes the only money, the ability to print money out of nothing will be taken away from the state. And that means the state has to account for money properly, has to spend money properly. It can't have vanity projects. Not that that's happening here, because I'm not here. I think it's very rude to talk about other people's countries when you're a foreigner. But in those countries where those vanity projects are going on, for example, what's happening in the Ukraine, and the United States government is giving billions of dollars to the Ukraine. They're printing it out of nothing. And that's an example of a vanity project, which will be totally forbidden when the world is running only on Bitcoin. So it's going to impose a proper discipline on all the governments if it can become a global standard. And I think it's well on the way to doing that, because it's so easy to get onboarded to. It's easy to get Wallet Satoshi. It's easy to get the IBEX terminal to receive Bitcoin as a merchant. And so as these tools spread virally throughout the economy, the ability to send and receive money, this financial freedom, is going to spread along with it. So you can imagine, it's very easy to imagine, just as people don't pay for telephone calls anymore because there's WhatsApp, people won't be tolerating bank accounts where their ability to speak money is restricted.
Okay. Awesome. You mentioned education. What role do you think education plays? Like, how important is it for Bitcoin adoption?
Well, there's several viewpoints about this, and I like to once again use the example of WhatsApp. Now, what WhatsApp does is tremendously complicated under the hood, but no WhatsApp user is concerned about that. They're only concerned about the context list and being able to call and send messages to other people, whether it's encrypted or not encrypted, peer-to-peer on the servers or anything. Nobody cares, but the consumers don't care about that. What matters is network effect, how many people are using it, and whether it's useful to people. So when it comes to Bitcoin, I think it's a good idea for us to emulate this, us being people in the industry of supplying Bitcoin to people, to emulate this and to remove all the complication, any expectation that ordinary people are going to understand cryptography, multi-sig or anything like that, and just present an interface to them that's anybody can understand, just as WhatsApp has done. And so if we follow that lead, then quite naturally people will come onto Bitcoin and use it just as they use any other messaging service. And you can see that in the point of sale devices that they're using here in this hotel. They're very, very simple to use. You just tap in the amount to be paid, press one button to show the QR code, the customer flashes it, the payment is made. And so there's no need for anybody to understand all these things except the developers who are developing the services. They absolutely must understand how everything works. And that's another topic, because some of them actually don't. But for the consumer, it's not required. It's not a requirement. In fact, making it a requirement is an impediment to Bitcoin spreading. And I'll give you one good example. The idea that people should write down a mnemonic before they can receive their first Bitcoin when they open up their wallet. I've been ranting and raving about this for a long time. It's absurd to ask people to do this security operation before they receive their first Bitcoin. That's why with Wallet Satoshi, for example, you just download it and it's instantly ready to use. That's the way things have to be. Otherwise, you're putting people off using Bitcoin, and the magic can't happen of mass adoption.
When do you think mass adoption will reach a level that Bitcoin's volatility is no longer like a negative impact for adoption?
That's a very good question. We know that the graph of the levels of volatility is on a downward slope. So we're on our way there already. When that downward slope touches the x-axis and it's zero, that depends on how quickly we can get Bitcoin into the hands of every user on Earth. And so it's in our best interest, the best interest of people who are interested in Bitcoin, to make it as easy as possible to get, which is what we do with Azteco. It's consumerizes the delivery of Bitcoin, as also making the tools to use Bitcoin super simple, so that we can get to that point where there's so many billions of people using Bitcoin that the volatility is basically vanished. And this is not something that's a fantastical idea. It absolutely can happen if the companies that are working in Bitcoin have the discipline and the insight to speak to the users. It's amazing how so many these companies who are well funded don't have user groups to test their applications against. I know of some applications who only do internal focus groups where the insiders decide what the interfaces should look like. That's suicidal. You have to get outsiders who know nothing about Bitcoin to be confronted by your interfaces, and if they can't use it, you're making a mistake. And also, there are professional companies that work on user experience and user interfaces, and it seems that they're not being utilized in Bitcoin. I think this is changing, but this is the way people have to think if Bitcoin is going to be consumerized.
Awesome. My last question for you is, we're here at Adopting Bitcoin 2022. What's your experience been like at the conference?
It's been a very good conference. I've been to a few conferences before, and this is one of the best ones. Not only because it's in El Salvador, which in itself is a great attraction, but the talks are on point, as they say. They're very focused. It's not a celebrity-led conference. It's about the content. It's about the messages to do with Bitcoin, and I think it makes a difference when it's a smaller scale in terms of not having superstars. I think it's been a very, very good conference, and I can assure you that I'll be here for the next one.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure.